Hi, I'm Jody Salter. I have been a part of the Columbia Design League since early 2011. Being a part of this organization and the museum for this long, it makes me look at everything I touch, everything I do, and realize that someone put an effort into creating that fork that feels good in my hand, that hair dryer, that toaster that has this really cool look that I want sitting on my cabinet. Let's talk about the very first dinner by design that I did, which was Monet's table. So serendipitously, I had Monet's cookbook, and I don't know if everyone knows, but he was an incredible chef. And so what I wanted to do was bring another aspect of Monet. My hope was that all of the museum patrons would go through the exhibits, see Monet's works of art, and then feel as though they were sitting at his table dining with him and talking about the art that was there. So we recreated the tablescape to mimic the colors of his kitchen. I used the recipes out of his cookbook. And we had little vignettes, because there's nothing worse than having dinner and having to stop and listen to someone speak for 30 minutes, right? Design-wise, that worked out perfectly, because while those vignettes were going, that gave us the opportunity to change courses. I do pride myself in putting together an incredible tablescape. But knowing that I didn't come from the design world, I wanted people to join and be a part and realize you don't have to be a designer. We just want you to want to learn more about all aspects of design.
Welcome to Binder. I'm Drew Barron. Hey y'all, producer Drew here, once again joined by my good friend Jackie Palmieri. She stole my seat. She's staring at me from my place where Ray usually sits when I'm not there. I'm not mad about it or anything, just mentioning. Hey, Jackie, welcome to the show.
Sounds like you're a little bitter.
I'm a little bitter about it.
I love this. It is the power of the host seat.
You know, it's convenient that we're talking about placement, because today's episode is really about design, and this room was designed very poorly.
I mean, it was designed to be a stockroom, so
that's true, and it has been.
So I feel like for a stockroom, it was well designed. For a sound studio, maybe not so much.
Hey, these moving blankets have done wonders for this space. I'm just gonna say, anyone who knows, and if you don't know, you're better off for it. But I really did bring you in here to talk about design. I think it's a really important element of our everyday life. You know, whether you're using a computer, or you're getting in your car, or you're going into a building, or you're hanging out in a park, or any other random thing I could think of to say here, please insert later. I know that design is an interest of yours as well. Can you tell me a little bit about like what you think about design and what elements are most important to you?
Yeah, design is everywhere. And we were talking about this space, you notice it acutely when it's bad design. But I mean, good design could be invisible, or you can kind of like click it up to that next level and make it, outstanding and make it be this gorgeous entity in and of itself. You know, we think of like Ames chairs or, Mac, original Macintosh computers. They built on like, our computers look real nice. They're not just, this beige brick. So yeah, I am a patron of good design. If I see a product on the shelf that is gorgeous packaging, I'm like, you know what? Some designer worked really hard on that. I'm buying that product and I'm keeping the packaging.
What's more important, form or function?
No, see, they need to work in harmony. That is good design. That's the point.
Touche. You win. That was totally a loaded question. I knew she was going to answer it that way. Here at the museum, we have quite a bit of our own holdings in design works. I mean, we keep everything from chairs to armoires to beautiful mirrors. We have a wonderful rounded mirror upstairs that I actually really love. And it's very simple, but I think that's kind of the beauty of it. Some design works best when it is very simple.
Yeah. Don't overwork it. Don't overbuild it. And I love that museums are really appreciating and collecting design pieces. The MoMA has a full wing of industrial design. We have a design gallery to really celebrate the people who spend years with these concepts and designs and paying attention to very specific material. And a lot of times they are also studio artists as well. I think one of our artists on view upstairs both has a sculpture and then a functional chair piece.
Yeah. Bertoya.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I really love the more sculptural piece that he created because it's just the spiky ball. Like it almost reminds you like a porcupine or maybe like a pine cone. Just anything with pine, really.
I always feel like it's almost like, a dandelion is so soft and delicate or whatever. And then this is almost like the juxtaposition to that. You could cut yourself on it. Like it has very rough parts and then it's very, very solid,
So you've deepened your level of commitment to design recently because you've become the liaison for the Columbia Design League. Isn't that true?
Yes, I'm super excited. So the museum has a few what they call affinity groups. So it's these little public subsets of the museum that have their own boards. They're fairly autonomous. And the Columbia Design League was started by a bunch of architects who just wanted to kind of have some time to, have some camaraderie and to just really bring good design to the forefront, which I'm super passionate about. So when the opportunity was presented to me to be the museum liaison, someone on staff who's going to be, a part of the board and officially part of the Design League, I was really excited. I realized that it's all graphic designers and architects and photographers and interior designers and a lot of New Yorkers. So I was super happy to basically find my tribe.
That's awesome. I have interacted with them since the day I got here at the museum. Really? So for 8 years now, I've known the Design League, which is only a fraction of that time. But in that time, they've done a lot of stuff here. They're a really active group. They hold a lot of programs. They do a lot of kind of meet the designer events and stuff like that. And they've also done some really big legacy events that a lot of people in the city would know about.
Yeah, as the new kid on the block, just finding out the events that they've done, the things that they've hosted, keynote speakers, the people who have been on the board and what they've done in the city, their influence with the renovation and revitalization of the Vista and downtown. It's really awesome to know that caliber of person has kind of come through and been part of this 25-year legacy. So super honored to be a part of it.
Hey, I am Anna Sveinbjornsdottir, and I am the current president of the Columbia Design League.
I love that you're the new president. I'm the new liaison, so we can kind of be learning together.
Sounds like a perfection to me.
How long have you been a member of the Design League?
I believe this is my 4th year.
4th year. And then how long have you been on the board?
Well, I asked immediately if I can join the board.
Okay, so 4 years in the Design League and 4 years on the board,
yes.
Jump right in.
Yes, I think I showed up for one event and I went and met with Jody, the current president at the time, and asked her, how can I get involved and what can I do? Can I send in my application and how can I help?
Wow, jumping right in. That's amazing. Okay.
And they were just so welcoming. It was everything about why I chose my profession. It is how I live my life. I love every little details and objects and just breathe that design all day long.
Mm-hmm. And you work in corporate interior design as opposed to residential?
Yes, we only do commercial. So we do, commercial interior design. We do a lot of hospitality. The interior design department does focus on that. And then we also do a lot of government interior design.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you said that you worked on the Hotel Trundle.
Yes, we were the designer for that.
Did you know Rita before or after the Design League?
So, before.
Okay.
So, me and Rita actually have a long history together. We worked at the same firm, and she ended up always just kind of hanging around the interiors, and, so we became friends, and she had opportunities. Said, Anna, there's this hospitality show in Tennessee. I think you need to come to it. Let's see if we can go. And I just got caught by, we call it the hospitality bug.
Yes.
So it's no turning back. So Rita and I started kind of the hospitality studio with that firm. Then her and her husband, Marcus, found this property and she called me and said, Anna, I think we're going to look at a boutique hotel and I know I want to do it with you. And so it was definitely a great way that we knew each other. We knew how to work together. We felt comfortable pushing each other. And she is so passionate about telling the story and promoting the community that everybody just became a passion project for most people that touched it, even though we didn't really have a lot of budget. We just had to be very smart and pick the moments.
Yeah. Drew and I were talking earlier about how sometimes design, the best design is the simple design. And it doesn't have to be the most expensive design. It just has to be good design.
Couldn't agree more. And if you can tell a story with your design, no matter what it is, that's when it hits home and then people can connect to it. Anybody can go pick all the most expensive, marble and whatever fancy things you can think of. But if it doesn't touch you and you don't feel like you can connect with it, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. And that's why I really like the fact that designers are getting a place in museums, because it's the same thing with art. You want that connection and that personality. It doesn't have to be gold,
Absolutely.
It could be anything, but just having that personality, that being able to tell that story, that touch of the artist or the maker or the designer.
Yes. And I do love that we are part of the museum. It is a blur line between when it becomes art and design. And, we all believe it's all art.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that I think should really be walking the walk together.
Yeah. And I'm super excited to be the liaison and to work with you guys, and really excited for this year's board, really like revitalizing that desire to really be a part of the museum. And some of the projects that we've got coming up. Do you want to kind of tell the audience about what we've got planned?
Absolutely. I think we have just such exciting season, and that being the 25th anniversary of the Columbia Design League even just makes it more special. We have a great, enthusiastic working board that are doing so much. We have some very ambitious goals. And so we have 3 events planned for the winter/spring. The first one that we are doing in February, we want to make a tour down to Charleston for the African American Museum of Art and see and get some behind the scenes tour. So we are lining up some people, either the craftsmen, architecture that has been part of that project, possibly even a party bus to take us all down there. Details are being worked out right now, but we will definitely be blasting that out on all over the social media. And so just follow us and please show up if you can.
And this is a brand new museum, brand new space.
Yes.
A great time to just come see this new museum and then to really get the design behind it, the understanding of why they made these choices, whether that was practical or financial, or they were like, no, we really wanted to guide people in this way.
Yes, I think we're all very excited about it. Museum has been in the works for a while, and I think my entire 4 years, we have talked every year. Is it ready? Can we go? Can we make a trip?
I think all of South Carolina is just ready for the red ribbon being cut and everyone being welcomed in.
So we're very, very excited about that. And then our March event is an all-female panel that we call Design Her.
Love the puns.
And so this is something we did last year, and it was so well received, and we all enjoyed it, is to highlight female local designers. And it could be architect, could be graphic designer, fashion designer. So we have been kind of looking at who we're going to select this year and reaching out to some local leaders. But it's always very much fun to see their story. And it's kind of hearing their struggles, their success, and just kind of hear what they go through as a female leaders in the design industry.
Yeah. Because obviously most industries were historically male dominated, and it's always just encouraging to hear people's journey.
Yes. And it was very dynamic and so much fun to just hear how they got where they're at today. Then last but not least, we are planning a trip to New York.
This is my favorite.
I know. I think we are all very excited. And some people perhaps might be thinking, hey, we are local. Why are we not just doing local events? Well, a big part of it is that our founders, they met in New York. That's where they were walking their kids in a stroller and were part of a design league in New York. And they were contemplating to move to South Carolina. And they were like, well, we will just start one in Columbia, South Carolina. And goodness, I'm so thankful they did. So we have big plans for this trip. It's going to be like 3-day trip overall. So we try not to make it too long.
A nice long weekend.
Yep. And it's one of those direct flights from Columbia. So that should not be too bad.
Yeah.
So just ending the year with kind of where it started.
Yeah, literally, it's come full circle. Yes. These people who started the Columbia Design League were from New York. They got their start in New York.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of bringing this is where the seed came from.
Yes. So I think it's a special year for sure. It's a special year for me. And I know that we will have a great season with all these events that we have lined up.
Thanks, Jackie. Anna Sveinbjornsdottir is the board president of the Columbia Design League and the director of interior design at Pond & Company. So now that we know a little bit more about where CDL is headed, let's go back to where it all began.
Bringing that kind of design into the sort of state halls of the art museum was just amazing to me.
Tom and Adrienne, after this. Hey y'all, you know who it is. Just thought you might like to know there's more coming soon. You know, more? What? You keep acting like you don't know what I mean. Come on. I'm talking about more exhibitions, more classes, more programs, more concerts, more tours, more art, more podcasts. There's always more at the CMA. See? More. And members get even more than that. More mission, more parties, more benefits than I can name in this ad. In fact, it might be easier if you just go see for yourself. Because if I have to list how much more there is, we'll be here all day. You can see more for yourself on our website, www.columbiamuseum.org. And now, for more of the show. Hey y'all, producer Drew here. A quarter of a century is a really long time, and the two guests that I have here today know that better than anyone. Today on the show, we have Adrienne Montare and Tom Savory. They're the founders of the Columbia Design League. Longtime listeners will remember Adrienne's actually been here to talk about the Columbia Design League a while ago, but just so we can get a little refresher, can y'all introduce yourself and tell me what is the Columbia Design League and what kind of inspired it?
I'm Adrienne Montare. I'm an architect, and I practiced for about 25 years before becoming the executive director of the state chapter of the American Institute of Architects, which is actually right across the street from the Art Museum.
I'm Tom Savory, and I am Adrienne's husband as well. We met working together in New York City, both architects, and then we had an opportunity to come to Columbia, but we also thought it would be a great place to raise our daughters. My parents were here. We particularly know what 25 years is because we moved here with a 0-year-old and a 2-year-old who are now 26 and 28 and are back where they were born. But before we moved to Columbia, we were excited about the opportunities and the possibilities and being in a smaller community and being able to really make contributions that we could feel and see and the community could see. And one of the things that we were keen to do was to, in some way, create an experience like one that we had really appreciated in New York, which was working on projects with the Architectural League of New York. We started thinking about that, and we realized that what would be really interesting, even more interesting really, was to not call it an architectural group or architectural league, we were thinking, but to call it design. We came down here, and once we got acclimated, I had the opportunity to approach the person that I was told far and wide I should approach to talk about this concept was Dot Ryle with the Cultural Council. I approached her at a public input session and kind of buttonholed her and told her my idea and my wife's idea. And she immediately said, let's meet. The next thing we knew, she brought it to her board, and the Cultural Council took us on as an incubator project. Mm-hmm. And then about 2 years later, then Director Sal Salela, through Christine Minkler, who was his education chair
here at the Art Museum,
at the Art Museum, suggested that we could start using the Bostick Auditorium. And then the next thing we knew, they were proposing maybe that we come and join the museum as an affiliate group.
The great thing for the Design League to come over to the Art Museum was the alignment in missions. And, Sal was very excited. I mean, there's the chair collection here at the museum. And he goes, yeah, we know about design. We need to do more about design. And for Tom and me, the idea of expanding what we knew really, really well, which is architecture and hanging out with architects and expanding that to include all the design arts. And so when we kind of think about, what the heck is design? One of Tom's former bosses and mine as well used to say that design was the intersection of art and science. I mean, he had actually a profane
there were two. Yeah.
way of describing it. We won't go into that.
There was that, and there was also, it is the transformation of choice to art.
Exactly.
Which I also love.
Exactly. Yeah. And so what's been so cool about being here at the museum now, 23 years, I think it's been, is that we are seeing the public when they come into our events, our programs, and they, maybe they came because we remember when we did the thing with the toasters.
That was an insane
exactly.
collection. Who would ever believe somebody would have that many toasters?
I mean, hundreds and hundreds. And remember when we had to get special permission, ask the museum, please don't shut it down, because we were getting so many people coming in to see the toasters. But that gave us a great opportunity to say, hey, you've got functionality in a toaster. It's got to toast in the end. At the end of the day, if it doesn't toast your toast properly, you're going to throw it out. But it also, part of the design is not just what the toaster looks like, where you start approaching art, like if an artist did a toaster. It is making sure that the use of the toaster, the experience of the user, that everything is just right. The buttons are the right size. The chrome has the right finish. You have the options to get the toast exactly where it needs to be. And so that was a fun way to say, hey, that's design.
I think what separates design from art is that design is deliberate, it's intentional, and it starts with the need to solve a problem. Whereas I'm not a fine artist, but I've always felt as though art is a much more intuitive journey, and design is not that. Design and architecture have principles associated with them that resemble art, but it's a different process. An architectural rendering is a representation of a piece of architecture. It doesn't stand alone as a piece of art.
I would say, though, I think that they both, in fine art and in design, you're using the same level of creativity and your approach. And I think that is where that intersection between the two does kind of meet. One thing that makes design so special is the fact that it's something that touches you every day and you touch it every day, as opposed to a painting on the wall you see, but do not touch, right? We actually make that a big part of our whole MO here. You don't touch anything. But that being said, we can understand design objects because it is something that, you're right, it's form and function. It's something that we work with directly.
I think the other thing about it is that I can't imagine a world where you would want to, but you can avoid art. You can't avoid design. That's one of the things that Adrienne and I have said in the past about the Columbia Design League is from the minute you open your eyes in the morning until you go to bed, you're engaging in design and you're engaging in design decisions. You and I chose
to wear... And hopefully they're good design decisions.
You and I chose to wear very different clothes. We both chose to not tuck in our shirts, but it's choices. We made those choices very deliberately, and you can't function through life. You can't function through the day without engaging design. I wanted to say, before I forget to say it though, it always was the idea that it would be a conversation between local creative force, local designers, and designers from outside. So national designers from other places that may not be nationally famous, but also famous designers. That was very deliberate from the very beginning. And what I found over the years is, and it didn't take long. It was like 2 years before we were starting to see ideas for designers to be invited to speak from other board members, new board members. It was just outrageous. It was incredible. And we've always had a board that is primarily not designers, but are people who are interested in design. And what's so fun about that is it continues to be so fresh. Without a doubt, what's been most interesting about the 25 years is the diversity of the programming and the programs that, non-designers, that lay people, bring to the Design League has been completely unexpected.
And it's exactly, we didn't know we wanted it, But now that it's happened, it's like, this is exactly what we wanted.
So we had a much stodgier idea of what it would be.
Much stodgier. We just wanted to,
we thought it was pretty cool, but compared to what it's turned out to be, it was stodgier.
Exactly.
I don't want to forget also to give a shout out to our original board members, because from the beginning, we had a fair amount of diversity. Everybody was engaged in design, but in different ways. So we had Doug Quackenbush, who's an architect, Irene Dumas-Tyson, who's also an architect, Clark Ellefson, who, of course, is a product designer and very well. And all of these people were very well regarded in the community. We had real design leadership in the community, arts leadership in the community. I think that helped get it going in the right direction right from the very beginning.
And it gave us that credibility so that when the city was deciding whether to do that master plan process and they had the public input sessions, they invited us to host them. And so we each gave the other side a credibility in our communities, and we brought that together. And it was early on, but it was a huge success for us.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to kind of mention a little later about the fact that the CDL has had quite an influence, not only on the museum, but on the city at large. But in those early days, I mean, did you already see the writing on the wall that this was going to be bigger than what you had initially kind of conceptualized in your head? Or was this like a natural process to get there?
Well, I think
it was hard to tell.
Well, except that our very, very first speaker, Jim Kunstler, I wouldn't say he's controversial, but he is very in your face.
He was controversial that day.
He was very, I stand corrected. I stand corrected.
Cursed.
But the way, especially the media, the press, the reaction, and then journalists from the state and Free Times came to us afterward. They were helping us raise awareness that design's a thing and that it impacts the city, that the city's on the verge of growing, because this was, in the mid-90s, and that response from folks, and then letters to the editor, and it was just fabulous. And that was just within the first, year or so.
Yeah.
So we knew that we struck a nerve, but we never could have foreseen, I don't think, that we'd be where we are now, where, the diversity of what we do has increased so much.
I don't think what I would have predicted is its staying power, its sustainability. I don't know that I would have predicted that we would continue to have people who wanted to spend time on the board and wanted to do all of the work that they've done. I would never have predicted Runaway Runway. That just was a juggernaut. And not only that the board members would want to do the kind of work that was required to do that every year. There was a reason that we stopped doing it after a while, but just the enthusiasm on the part of people in the community to come out and design these things, to model these things, to judge. They were huge productions. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first one, I walked into the art museum and I saw this combustion, this in the lobby of the art museum, this sort of very bawdy party going on, and these outfits in those days, the Runaway Runway outfits, you could actually tell were homemade. It got to the point where they looked professional quality. But in the early days, it was bawdy. It was a little dirty,
raw,
and this was happening, in the lobby of the art museum. And I thought, wow, this does not look like something I'd expect to see happening in Columbia, South Carolina. But I mean, that just went on for a decade.
Yeah.
Got bigger and more elaborate. Some of the outfits, they were crazy.
And the concept was that it was to be made of recycled or reused materials. Mm-hmm.
Our tagline was "Strut your junk." And we even got the mayor to say that on a TV advertisement for it. It was wild. And then we started seeing copycats. I think, well, I'm not going to say who, but a few institutions around the state started doing it, and it was time to cycle out. One of the things that's very interesting to me, and I mean, maybe it's you could easily look at it as a disappointment as a designer and architect yourself. But I think it's fabulous is that it is overwhelmingly people who are not designers who come to the Columbia Design League events, overwhelmingly going to, home tours or going to, one year, the group on the board came up with this Meet the Designer idea where, we would go to artist studios.
We still do that today.
Yeah, designer studios. And again, they're always packed. Of course, there's always wine, but it's a good combination.
Hey, I've been to a lot of art openings just because of the wine, but to y'all's point, I think one of the really interesting things about the Design League is the diversity of content and programs that you've been able to bring here. I mean, it's not just lectures. It's not even just runway and things like that. I mean, y'all have really broadened the scope of what an organization like this can do in Columbia in general.
Yeah. And I think Play with Your City also potentially is something where we've had impact, and that has led to the right decisions being made. And so the first Play with Your City was for that kind of pocket park on the corner of Lady and Main, which was purchased by First Citizens and was really just grass lot. And the competition that year was to come up with something to activate that corner, because that's such a prominent corner on one of the most important streets in the state. And I think First Citizens got excited about it, and they allowed us to keep it up. It was the
Giant Fortune Cookies.
Giant Fortune Cookies by Jonathan Brilliant.
No, just the fortunes.
Just the fortunes.
Just the fortunes. They were cookies.
But I think it inspired First Citizens to say, hey, this little plot that we've got, we can start to do things on there. And so now they keep that going, and they've actually started programming it.
I think what's interesting about it is if the Design League can come at design impacting the community through more of an intervention kind of angle and perspective than an authoritative angle and perspective, I think it's more effective.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think we have done that. I think that's a very good point about the park.
Exactly. And then One Columbia, the initiative of One Columbia, and also, just getting, the public art project, I think.
And the flag. We ushered in a new city flag through a design competition. That was a long time in coming, and I don't think anybody really understood how we could possibly have the design that we had on the original flag. And now we have a flag that is memorable, that a child could draw, which was part of the goal of creating a new city flag. And that will probably last a very long time. It's a symbol. Again, it's really important to shout out to all of our board members that it is the collective group of the board members bringing these ideas. Lee Snellgrove brought that idea to the Design League. He brought it from One Columbia because as a Design League board member, he recognized, I think, that the Design League had the ability and the wherewithal to get that competition done. He was right. And a dozen people worked on that. It really is the collective group of ideas and also the willingness of the individuals who come up with the ideas to see them through.
With it being 2022, design's more important than ever. It impacts our lives every single day. I would love to kind of get y'all's position on where do you think the influence of design will be, 10, 20 years from now? And where do you think the CDL will be 25 years from today?
We have our youngest daughter is 26, and she's an architect, and she's just starting out. And Adrienne and I think often about what her career is going to be like, and it will surely be completely different from ours, because what I do now as a practicing architect, what I actually do on a daily basis, is very, very different from what I did, say, 30 years ago, for sure. We've seen a tremendous rise in sort of ubiquitous high-quality architecture over the past generation. You look around and architecture is significantly more complex and significantly more interesting and delightful on average than it was 25, 30 years ago. And there's no reason not to expect that that's going to continue, because the tools are just going to be so much more vivid and so much more intelligent. And so that's what we expect that our daughter's career is going to be like. And I would hope that that's reflected in what the Design League's programming is like.
Well, maybe 25 years from now, Vera will come and present at the Columbia Design League.
She'll be the annual meeting keynote. No, she'll come because her parents started the Design League. She knows the Design League. So yeah, and we can probably get her.
We can twist some arms on the board.
I think her mom's still alive.
Tom Savory and Adrienne Montare are the founders of the Columbia Design League. you want to learn more about the CDL and how you could join, we'll put some information in the show notes, so go check it out. "25 years ago, I was 8 years old and probably couldn't even spell the word design, and the CDL had already started to leave an impact. Since then, they've continued to be advocates for form, function, and fun here in the capital city. So with that, I'd like to raise a glass to our friends at the Columbia Design League. To 25 years of good design and good times. Cheers. You've been listening to Binder, a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. Today's episode was hosted, produced, and edited by me, Drew Barron. Special assistance from Joelle Ryan Cook. To learn more about the CDL or any of the museum's affinity groups, not to mention exhibitions, programs, concerts, and everything else CMA, you can check it out on our website, www.columbiamuseum.org.